Hello, my name is Connor. I'm absolutely freezing. 今日の動画では Kaede Hirata no Someday I'll Love You について話してます。Kaede Hirata is a Japanese singer and songwriter. She came out with her first album last year and I really liked it. It was called Nisemono Internet, which means fake internet, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought there were some really cool and really interesting ideas present on that album. So imagine my surprise when last week I checked my Twitter feed and I saw that she had a new album coming out. And I was like, oh, that's next week. So here we are. I've listened to it. It came out earlier today. And I am ready for it, though you'll probably be seeing this a few days after it's actually out. This album is 7 songs long and about 21 minutes long, so it's kind of on par with a lot of longer Japanese EPs that are kind of in that like longer EP and also shorter LP kind of range. Frankly, I think this is a pretty good length for this kind of project. Kaede actually has a few songs that are like sub 2 minutes or like 2 minutes, 15 seconds. So there's a lot of that, and maybe I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that on this album, but it is what it is, and I still like what's here anyway. With Kaede being a newer artist, she is obviously still figuring out her sound. And so of course, that process necessitates using what you already know, and then kind of using that in your own music and expressions and songwriting and all that. So right off the bat, this album just sounds like Ichika Alba, like traversing the Matrix. Similarly, the first song, Ceremony, really sounds like Dintel's work on Give Up by the Postal Service. I love that album, especially the production is a real highlight. So having some of those elements of that sound here on this album make me very, very happy. Speaking of sounds, I really like the ones that she implemented on the song Ghost. So Ghost is kind of your standard electric kind of pop song, pop ballad, electric ballad, whatever you want to call it. That song has this really cool sounding electronic current just running throughout the entire song. And I think it's trying to represent how our brain synapses work and operate, and also what happens just when you have thoughts in general in your head. I think that was super cool. So yeah, I really like that, and I really like all of these very unique sounds that she chose on pretty much every song here. The song Knob includes this pitter-patter of a low bass electronic bouncing sound. I really like how that sounded, and I think that was amplified by the fact that I was wearing some really nice headphones, so that really kind of gave me that like 3D audio experience on that song. Though of course that's not the only song that includes some fantastic production on it too. There's another song on the album called Kasumi no Uta, and that sounds like what I can only describe as like washing a motherboard must sound like, in the case you are the data stored on the motherboard or something like that. It is crazy. So those are just the electronic elements of the production on this album. There are some acoustic instruments as well. First off, I love the piano roll on the song Lily. It's very light, it's very playful. On this song, I'm sort of getting another dose of Ichika Alba here. Moreover, it also reminds me of some anime scores, such as the one from A Silent Voice. This especially popped up in my mind because of the heavy use of piano, as well as the added in glitchy sound effects, which are all over that soundtrack. And so just to close out talking about this song called Lily, Kaide's voice is amazing here too. I really like it. I just think she did a fantastic job of delivering a very heartfelt and very kind of powerful vocal performance here, which I just really need to mention because it was so well done in my opinion. Kasumi no Uta is also a real highlight of the tracklist as well. This is easily the chillest and calmest song on the album that also naturally exudes this sort of lullaby-like quality to it. And so of course, the slow melody of the guitar suits this track very well in my opinion for that reason. I know I usually save talking about mixing until the end of a video, but I just have to say, this album is so well mixed. It's absolutely fantastic. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, that song Knob just has all of these sounds and glitches just all over you. They are never overpowering her vocals. They are never buried underneath it. They are perfectly spaced in like every way. So fantastic job to whoever mixed this album. They really knocked it out of the park, I think. The closing song is the title track of this album and is titled Someday I'll Love You, and it is just a wonderful closing song. It really instills this last minute burst of energy that I think actually resolves the album very well. I absolutely love the production, and I really felt like it was a culmination of pretty much everything I had to say about this album so far in this video. In particular, I really like the kind of light bubbling and sparkling sound effects kind of around the middle point of the song, right before it transitions into a pretty lively drum and bass song That was very unexpected, but super cool to actually experience, I think. So my closing thoughts are that Someday I'll Love You is a really nice and cutesy, cerebral, electronic ambient album. I think if you like the production style of Hakushi Hasegawa's latest work, you probably really like this album too. And overall, I had a lot of fun listening to this album, and I'm excited to see where Kaede goes next. And because of that, I do like this album more than her first. Her first was very experimental, rough in kind of the expected first album sorts of ways, especially as an indie artist. So because of that, I feel like she really locked in for this album and fine-tuned what kind of music she wanted to make, because this is a much more consistent stylistic album than her first one. And so I like it not just primarily because it is so kind of focused in on that specific sound. I think the songs in general are just more well composed as well. As I keep saying, I love her voice, and I think she sounds really good here too, especially compared to that first album. So on that first album, she actually used a lot of vocal effects on top of her vocals, so I could never really get all that good of a baseline for how good of a singer she is, but luckily that is cleared up here, and she sounds great. While I do think the mixing on the production is fantastic, sometimes the vocals do get a little buried. It's been kind of hard to actually make out what she's saying. I can kind of get sentences here or there, but because a lot of the lyrics on this album are like, this happens, and then this happens, and then I feel this way, there is kind of a flow to the lyrics on every song. And so because of that, you can't really afford to really miss any line, because you are going to lose the story entirely pretty quickly. While I do sometimes understand full sentences that she's saying, I oftentimes don't. That really makes transcribing and thereby translating the lyrics really hard for me, because I just could not make out very important words that would come up in the sentences and the songs. Another small issue I have with this album is that I wish it was a little longer. That's just me being kind of picky. I just wanted her to explore this sound here more, because I think she really pulled it off. I would have liked to have seen her go even deeper in it by adding a few more tracks. It's not easy coming out with your first album in 1 year and then like less than like 12 months later coming out with your second. She's a busy person, I get it. But I would have liked maybe a little bit more time in the oven for this album, and for her to be able to make a few more songs for it too. Though I will say, it seems like she comes out with singles pretty often, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we have another single in the next like 1 to 3 months. However, one thing I will concede on is that this album has no duds. Sure, I will probably skip the intro in the future, though it's like sub 1 minute. Regardless of that, I do feel like every song stands on its own and is also pretty unique for the most part, so I do like that aspect too. And with all that said, I'd like to rank this album a 7 out of 10. My absolute final thoughts are that my favorite songs are Knob, Lily, and Someday I'll Love You. And I think if this album consisted of songs that were of the quality of those songs, this would have ranked way higher. I really do like everything that's on this album. I just wish there was like twice as much. Check out this very cute pop ambient electronic album. I think you'll like it. There's fantastic vocals. You probably aren't going to understand the lyrics. I barely do. But it is so great. It's got such a fantastic atmosphere and vibe and kind of sense of like energy to it and sentimentality. It's so great. I really like this, and I'm really excited for her third album, because I think she's going to knock it out of the park for sure. And that's all I have for Someday I'll Love You. Obviously, I like it a lot. I think you should check this out. It is 21 minutes long, so it sounds like this is probably going to take less time than like your lunch break. So I'd say check it out. If you have the time for it, I think you should. And you're probably gonna see some videos here and maybe like a subscribe button. Maybe click on like one of those, man. I don't know. It'd be cool if you did. I would appreciate it. But if you don't, then, you know, no hard feelings, but little bit of hard feelings. So anyway, thank you for watching and have a good rest of your day.